Before we begin today's part of the 40 Rules of Love, make sure to subscribe to our channel, Easy Listen and Learn English. This series is full of wisdom, love, and lessons that can touch your heart and improve your English too. So don't miss the next parts, hit subscribe now and stay connected. And if you enjoy this video, share it with your friends, because love and learning grow when shared. Dizzy. Ella Northampton, May 19, 2008. Ella sat in her quiet house in Northampton, the day slowly fading into evening. She placed a bookmark in the manuscript titled Sweet Blasphemy and set it aside. The story had stirred something inside her, something she couldn't explain. Curious about the writer, she opened her laptop and typed Aziz Zahara into Google, not really expecting to find much. To her surprise, a colorful blog appeared on the screen. Its name was an eggshell named Life, painted in shades of amethyst and turquoise. At the top, a man in a white skirt spun gracefully, a whirling dervish, something Ella had never seen before. The page glowed with poetry and peace, drawing her in like a gentle breeze. As she scrolled, she found a short poem that spoke directly to her heart. Let us choose one another as companions. Let us sit at each other's feet. Inwardly we have many harmonies, think not that we are only what we see. The words felt ancient yet alive, as if whispering truths Ella had long forgotten. She leaned closer, unable to look away. Each postcard on the blog came from a different part of the world, Turkey, India, Guatemala, and beyond. Beneath each image were heartfelt notes written by Aziz Zahara. Ella learned three things right away. His full name was Aziz, he called himself a Sufi, and he was traveling in Guatemala. Something about this stranger felt oddly familiar to her soul. In one section, Ella discovered a collection of photographs, faces of men, women, and children from all walks of life. But every person was missing something, a tooth, a shoe, a finger, or even a leg. Beneath the pictures, Aziz had written, no matter who we are, we all feel incomplete. Some search for what's missing, but only a few dare to find it. Ella read those lines again and again. The words touched a quiet corner of her heart that had been asleep for years. She felt as if every picture and poem was meant only for her eyes. It was a strange, almost impossible thought, but it made perfect sense in that moment. Ella felt seen for the first time in a long while, and she didn't even know why. Later that afternoon, the smell of freshly baked brownies filled her kitchen, but her mind was elsewhere. The golden sunlight pressed softly against her back as she sat by the window, lost in thought. She tried to return to Sweet Blasphemy, but the words blurred before her eyes. Her thoughts were tangled, heavy with unspoken feelings. In an attempt to distract herself, Ella whispered with a small laugh, maybe I should write my own book, The 40 Rules of the Housewife. Then she made up her first rule, stop looking for love. But even as she spoke, her chest tightened. Deep down, she knew it wasn't funny, it was sad. Something inside her was breaking open, unable to keep her thoughts to herself. Ella picked up the phone and called her daughter, Jeanette. But all she got was the answering machine. Nervously, she began to speak, apologizing for interfering in her daughter's life. Her voice trembled as she admitted, I'm so unhappy. The words escaped before she could stop them. When the message ended, Ella sat frozen in silence. She hadn't even realized she was unhappy until that moment. How could someone live a life so full of people and still feel so empty? Her eyes fell on a small piece of paper beside her laptop, Aziz Zahara's email address. Simple, quiet, and inviting. Without thinking too much, Ella began to type. She introduced herself politely, mentioning that she was reading his novel for a literary agency. She told him she enjoyed it, though she didn't fully agree with his ideas about love. But beneath her careful words, something deeper was being said, a quiet cry for understanding. At the end of her message, she mentioned her daughter and how their relationship had grown tense. She even invited Aziz for coffee if he ever came to Boston. When she hit send, she didn't know that this single email would change her life forever. What began as a professional note would soon become a doorway to love, truth, and awakening. The Master, Baghdad, April 1242 inch. Baghdad did not notice the arrival of Shams of Tabriz, but I will never forget that day. Our modest dervish lodge was filled with visitors, including the High Judge and his men. The judge was known for his dislike of Sufis, and his visit was not one of friendship. I could tell he had come to remind us that people like him were watching. The judge was a proud man, large and wealthy, with short fingers covered in shining rings. His robes were made of fine silk and fur, and he always walked like a man certain of his power. Coming from a long line of scholars, he could send a man to his death or forgive him with a single word. I did not approve of his arrogance, but for peace, I stayed polite. As we sat together, the judge boasted, "We live in the most magnificent city in the world, Baghdad. Refugees come here for safety. Isn't this the center of everything, Baba Zaman?" I smiled carefully and replied, "Yes, it is a great city, but like every living thing, it will one day grow old and fade." My words made him frown. "Such pessimism," the judge said, reaching for another date. "The Abbasids will rule forever. The only danger is from traitors, Muslims who twist our faith." His eyes narrowed at me, and I stayed silent. I knew he was talking about the mystics, people like us, who saw God with the heart, not only through laws. Just then, a young novice entered and whispered that a wandering dervish wished to see me. Normally, I would have made him wait, but I thought a traveler's story might ease the tension in the room. So, I asked the novice to bring him in. Little did I know that this decision would change everything that followed. The door opened, and in walked a man dressed completely in black. He was tall and thin, with sharp features and eyes as dark as night. His hair fell in messy curls over his forehead, and around his neck hung several charms. In his hand, he carried a wooden bowl, simple, humble, and full of meaning. From the moment I saw him, I knew he was different. There was a quiet fire in his eyes, something powerful yet peaceful. I invited him to sit. He nodded respectfully, then took a seat across from me. His gaze moved slowly around the room until it rested on the judge. The air grew tense. We offered him sweet milk and dates, but he refused gently. When asked his name, he said, "I am Shams of Tabriz, a wandering dervish searching for God." The room grew silent. I asked softly, "And did you find him?" Shams smiled faintly and replied, "Yes, he was with me all along." The judge laughed mockingly. "If God was always with you, why search for him?" Shams lowered his head, calm and thoughtful. "Because," he said, "though God cannot be found by seeking, only those who seek truly find him." The room went still, his words hung in the air like a spell. The judge scoffed, "Nonsense. Not everyone needs to wander the earth in rags. God can be found anywhere." Shams nodded slightly. "True," he said, "some see the world without ever leaving their home. But others," he added, "cannot find God while wrapped in silk and gold." The laughter in the room stopped instantly. The judge's face hardened, his pride wounded. I held my breath, unsure of what would happen next. Shams spoke with fire, but also with peace. When something must be said, he declared, "I will speak, even if the world tells me to stay silent." The judge changed the subject, trying to hide his anger. "You must have seen many cities," he said. "Is there one more beautiful than Baghdad?" Shams looked around and answered, "Baghdad is indeed beautiful, but beauty fades when hearts grow dark. Cities reflect their people. When hearts lose faith, even the grandest city loses its light." I couldn't help but nod. There was truth in his words. The judge frowned, still unwilling to listen. "You Sufis complicate everything," he said sharply. "All people need is to follow the Sharia. That is enough." Shams smiled softly. "The Sharia is like a candle," he said. "It gives light, but only to guide us. If we forget where we are going and stare only at the candle, what use is it? The judge's face tightened in anger. I feared his reaction, but Shams continued fearlessly. There is a rule for this, he said calmly. Each person understands the Quran in his own way, depending on his depth. There are 4 levels, the outer meaning, the inner meaning, the inner of the inner, and finally, the mystery that cannot be spoken. He explained that scholars knew the outer meaning, Sufis knew the inner, saints knew the inner of the inner, and only prophets understood the deepest truth. The judge's eyes narrowed. Are you saying Sufis know more than scholars? He asked coldly. Shams only smiled. The silence was sharp as a blade. Be careful, the judge warned. You are walking close to blasphemy. Shams looked calm, unshaken. What is blasphemy? He asked. Let me tell you a story. The room fell quiet as he began the tale of Moses and the shepherd, a story that would silence even the proud judge. Shams told of a shepherd who prayed to God with childlike love. He promised to wash God's feet, clean his ears, and cook rice for him. When Moses heard this, he was angry and scolded the shepherd for his ignorance. The shepherd was ashamed and promised to pray correctly. But that night, God spoke to Moses and said, You have driven away one who loved me sincerely. His words may sound foolish, but his heart was pure. His prayer was sweet to me. Moses realized his mistake and went back to the shepherd, telling him, Pray in your own way. That is what God loves most. When Shams finished, the room was silent. You see, he said, God looks at the heart, not the words. It is not the rituals or rules that matter, but the purity of our love. The judge said nothing, though his face betrayed his anger. Everyone else sat in awe, afraid to breathe. Outside, the sun began to set, painting the sky red and gold. The judge finally stood up, muttered something about business, and left with his men. I turned to Shams and said softly, I'm afraid the judge didn't like you much. Shams smiled gently and replied, That's all right. I am used to people not liking me. As I looked at him, I felt something deep inside me shift. There was power in this man, something I could not name. I had met many travelers, many seekers of truth, but never anyone like Shams of Tabriz. I asked him quietly, Tell me, Dervish, what brings you to Baghdad? And in my heart, I already knew, my life was about to change.